Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is our... Let me make sure this is on the right thing. There we go. It is our Thursday 13 episode where we cover 13 things, specifically Shakespearean words that have become mainstream. 13 of them that he invented, I guess. They're not mainstream, but he invented 13 of them. And we'll also talk about, of course, the UK elections that are officially going to be held on July 4th, as well as some other additional news about politicians, because it's politicizing time. The European elections are coming up. Politicians want to overreach and do stuff that they're not allowed to do. And, of course, we've got our culture segment. Let's go ahead and cover our headlines here. Today on Before Coffee, Sweden plans to allocate $7 billion in military aid to Ukraine between 2024 and 2026, and the government of Spain withdraws the land law the last moment due to lack of support.
The United States Supreme Court, which is the most corrupt in history, gets a little bit more corrupt, and we look at tornadoes in the United States.
Coming out of the UK, of course, we've got UK election has now been called for July 4th, and here's what you need to know about it.
And there are gods, there are demigods, and then there's William Shakespeare, who invented a lot of words, and we're going to look at a few of them.
And in culture news, interview with Matt Barney, Stress and Failure. Matthew Barney on his film about the sports accident that traumatized America.
All these wonderful stories from National Lucky Penny Day, which is May 23rd, 2024, on Before Coffee.
All right. I hope everyone had a great Wednesday, and it was a little wackier than usual if you watch this show. Let's go ahead and get into our first story from Sweden. This is on the Kyiv Independent by Martin Fornusek. The Swedish government has agreed to create a support framework for Ukraine, which would allocate 75 billion Swedish krona, or $7 billion, in military support from 2024 to 2026. The Swedish government said on May 22nd. With this proposal, Stockholm's civilian and military aid to Ukraine since the outbreak of the full-scale war will amount to over 100 billion Swedish krona, or over $9 billion. Ukraine's fight against Russia's war of aggression continues, and Sweden will support Ukraine's fight as long as it takes. The joint press release by the country's defense and finance ministries read, Sweden will increase the support as the framework amounts to 75 billion Swedish krona in the military support for the years 2024 and 2026, between the years 2024 and 2026, which is 25 billion Swedish krona, or $2.3 billion dollars per year, according to the statement. That's a lot of money per year. The framework could cover future equipment donations, financial contributions, and financial support for the procurement of defense equipment. The Swedish government reached an agreement on the framework with the right-wing Sweden Democrat Party, which provides confidence and support to the ruling parties in the parliament. In an interview with Bloomberg published on May 21st, Swedish Defense Minister Pål Jonson said that the country is ramping up its capacity to increase aid to Ukraine, but the process can take up to 2 years. Russia has gone back on its feet faster than Euro-Atlantic community. I expect it will catch up, but I think it will take a year or two before we can see the full effect, the minister said. So that's your short little update for aid from Sweden, who has given a lot and is going to give a lot in the next 2 years. In Spanish news, which we have been talking about Spain a lot, but I guess a lot is happening there. The government has withdrawn the land law support. This is from Paulo Trauza and Virginia Martinez on El País. A few hours before the campaign for the European elections on June 9th begins, and given the lack of parliamentary support, the Socialist Party of the government has decided to withdraw in extremis the land law on Thursday, which was today, May 23rd at 8 a.m., the draft of the land law that was to be debated at the plenary session of the Congress starting at 9 a.m. Within this movement, the PSOE has avoided a second defeat in Parliament in less than 48 hours, after the failure suffered on Tuesday, which was May 21st, by its initiative to toughen penalties against pimping. The Socialists knew that several of their investiture partners, including the minority members of the executive, Sumar, rejected the text, but they trusted the support of the PP to move the standard forward. However, the popular ones threatened on Wednesday, the May 22nd, not to support the norm, to evidence the parliamentary weakness of President Pedro Sanchez, as sources from Genoa assured. The Ministry of Housing justifies the last-minute withdrawal to guarantee that the role is not affected by electoral situation, according to the statement released by the department headed by Isabel Rodriguez. Basically, all those fancy words means they were scared it wouldn't get passed because the people who were voting on it don't support the current president. So instead of it not getting passed and being a dead law, they decided not even to vote on it and wait until they have a more favorable position for people to vote on it with unbiased minds. The government approved the land law in the Council of Ministers last March, but with the rejection within the executive itself of Sumar and outside from a good part of the groups that support the government in Congress, Junts, Podemos, and ERC promoted the amendments to the entire text, which were going to be debated this Thursday, or today on the 23rd of May. The PP, which initially opened itself to negotiate the law and did not present amendments to the entire law, was willing today to support those registered by another group, to help Sanchez suffer a new blow, according to popular sources. Despite the fact the rejection of the project was widespread among the groups, Rodriguez has charged almost exclusively against the popular ones, who have accused of leaving the general interest aside to trip the executive in the midst of a fury electoral. The government is not going to participate in the PP's game by wanting to mess with anything, he said. Sources from his cabinet explained that in the last few hours, they communicated with the popular Deputy Secretary Paloma Martin, in charge of the housing area in the PP leadership, but that she did not want to confirm the meaning of her vote if the project was debated today. Same sources assure that last week the PP did not open itself to supporting the law by negotiating partial amendments. So, Sumar criticized the law, considering that it limits public intervention and encourages the culture of hitting the ball, while Junts and ERC focus their complaints on competition issues. A law that is intended to eliminate restrictions on possible environmental impacts and hinder popular action in urban planning plans is a hit law, more typical of the path that Aznar marked for. For this reason, the PSOE aspired to get it out with the PP, criticized Sumar's parliamentary spokesperson Inigo Erjon in the halls of Congress. The deputy has expressed his desire to agree on a new rule. It will have to be redone. It will be discussed again, and one that in line with the two fundamental priorities of the country: fight against cultural change and promote access to housing. The General Secretary of Podemos, Iona Belada, has celebrated the withdrawal of the law and has stated that the government has not contacted her party at any time and that they found out only a few minutes before the announcement. From ERC, its spokesperson Gabriel Rufián has spoken, saying that he has seen the withdrawal of the rule as normal, because we are going to lose it, and dramatic, because there is a path that they do not want to take, which is that of dialogue and interlocution, he said. With the withdrawal of the initiative, Alberto Núñez Feijóo's party sees it as an argument reinforced that the president of the government does not have sufficient support to continue with legislator. I mean, we already talked about this a few months back, when I think the King of Spain was like, there aren't enough majority support to have an actual president for the government. I don't think they ever really got that. They kind of got a bunch of coalitions in order to run Spain's government, but that is not enough to actually pass any laws, which is proof here. Everyone's so scared of their laws getting rejected under the current president because of people just fighting each other internally, that you can't pass anything that is either reasonable or unreasonable or good or bad. It's just all, if you can get an upper hand on the president, you're probably going to do whatever you can to get that. So there's our two stories. on politicians being politicians, and we're just going to have more of that today here on Thursday.
Sad state of affairs.
Yep.
More on thoroughly themeless Thursday. We have a Supreme Court justice acting a fool, which is kind of not even news anymore. But it's Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, the guy who leaked his abortion decision before it was, decided, based on no case histories or anything. We just want to make the law. We're the Supreme Court. Anyway, so the Supreme Court basically just acting as a wing of the Christian conservative movement and the corporate masters that they serve. This is from Associated Press. A second flag of a type carried by rioters during the attack of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th was displayed outside the house of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, the New York Times reported Wednesday. An appeal to heaven flag was flown outside Alito's beach vacation home last summer. An inverted American flag, another symbol carried by rioters, was seen as Alito's home outside Washington less than 2 weeks after the violent attack on the Capitol. News of the upside-down American flag sparked an uproar last week, including calls from high-ranking Democrats for Alito to recuse himself from cases related to defendant J. Trump. And of course, he won't recuse himself because he's a dishonest human being. Alito and the court declined to respond to requests for comment on how the appeal to heaven flag came to be flying and what it was intended to express. He previously said the inverted American flag was flown by his wife. Blamed his wife. Okay. So you're a Supreme Court justice. You have no sway over what your wife does. Makes a lot of sense. You have no influence on her. Okay, got it. He previously said the inverted American flag was flown by his wife. He had no part in it. The white flag with green pine was seen flying Alito beach home in New Jersey, according to 3 photographs obtained by the Times. The images were taken at different dates in July, September 23, and though it wasn't clear how long it was flying overall and how much time Alito spent there. The flag dates back to the Revolutionary War, but a more recent is associated with nationalism. That's why I've never heard of it. I have never seen this flag flown anywhere except at the freaking January 6th riot. And, it's only associated with Christian nationalists. That's why. That's what okay. The same people that want to own your body, that want to own your uterus, just understand who you're voting for and you vote for these people. They don't think you're human. They think you're a substandard subspecies of human if you're a female. Just want you to know that. If you don't believe that, watch that Kansas City Chiefs kicker in his idiotic graduation speech.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that's your latest scumbag Supreme Court idiot news. And let's get on to more cheerful news about people dying in tornadoes. No, just sarcasm. This is from Hannah Fingerhut, huh? And Marjorie A. From AP News. 5 dead as tornadoes ripped through Iowa. This has happened all week, so this is not really... I've been watching these all week. Extensively filmed tornado I've ever seen in my life. Tornadoes. Just all over Iowa, ripping apart wind turbines. Yeah. Just dramatic footage out there. 5 people died and at least 35 were hurt as powerful tornadoes ripped through Iowa, with one carving a path of destruction through the small city. Greenfield official said Wednesday. The Ohio Department of Police say tornadoes killed 4 people in the Greenfield area, which is amazing considering that really flattened a lot of houses. Just flattened them. There was a house there? And the Adams County Sheriff's Office said a 5th person, a woman whose car was blown off the road, was killed in a twister about 25 miles away. Monica Zamaron, 46, died in a crash Tuesday afternoon, officials said. Officials did not release names of the Greenfield area victims because they were still notifying relatives. The Iowa Department of Public Safety said Wednesday it believed that the number of people higher, I would imagine. It doesn't usually go down. Oh, I thought I was injured. I really wasn't. That doesn't happen. The Greenfield tornado left a wide swath of obliterated homes, splintered trees, and crumpled cars in the town of 2000, about 55 miles or 88 kilometers southwest of Des Moines. The twister also ripped apart and crumpled massive power-producing wind turbines several miles outside the city. Greenfield residents Kimberly Erdish, 33, and her husband Doug, her husband dug through the debris field Wednesday that used to be their home, looking for family photos and other salvageable items. There wasn't much left, she acknowledged. Most of it we can't save, but we're going to get what we can. The reality of her house destroyed in seconds hasn't really set in, she said. If it weren't for all the bumps and bruises and achy bones, I would think it all didn't happen. Tuesday's storms also pummeled parts of Illinois and Wisconsin, knocking out power, tens of thousands of customers in 2 states, and severe weather turned south on Wednesday. In the National Weather Service issuing tornado and flash flood warnings in Texas as parts of the state, including Dallas, were under tornado watch. The National Weather Service says initial survey indicated at least an EF3 tornado in Greenfield, but initial damage assessment could lead to a more powerful ranking. If that was an EF3, they're lucky it wasn't a big one.
Yeah.
But there's your weekly tornado update. There's not going to stop happening. They're just going to get worse, and they're going to get more frequent. Unfortunately, as we just dance around and do the dance of denial, that the planet's getting hotter.
Be fine. Only you are going to suffer,
Yep.
but anyone who's not
That's
me
right.
is going to be fine.
And you poor people leaving your country that has no economy anymore. You can't stay here.
Sounds like
And
you
we
need
aren't
to be
gonna help the
deported to
global-
Mars.
And we're not going to help the globe either.
You know what?
What's a little heat going to do to you?
You know what? That's what's really going to happen. We're not going to... All the rich people aren't going to go to Mars. They're going to deport all the people they don't like to Mars, and then they're going to keep the Earth to themselves. That's the true...
The Earth ain't going to care. The Earth is going to say, I don't want humans anymore. I just don't want you guys around. That's just going to happen. There are going to be viruses that are just going to wipe us out.
They're going to start sending us out into space.
Because we're going to have
going to be dying in space somewhere.
We spend our resources. This is what we do. Here's what we do. We spend our resources plundering our other resources. That's what we do. Anyway. Back to you for that cheerful news.
Well, this isn't about the tragic state of our Earth, but instead the state of the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Elections are being called for on July 4th. Big news. A lot of people are very happy about this. I follow a couple of people on British social media, and they are excited to be given another chance to vote for Labour and for the Labour to not get into the election. But they keep trying every year. If I could vote, I would, because the Tories have what people have been arguing from at least the left. The Tories have been destroying the country for the last 20 years or so, and a lot of people are excited that they get another chance to maybe clear them out. This is from Danik Kirka on AP News. The United Kingdom's first election in 5 years is shaping up as a battle for the country's soul, with some saying it poses an existential threat to the governing Conservative Party, which has been in power since 2010. The center-right Conservatives took power during the depths of the global financial crisis and have won 2 more elections since then, including Brexit. Brexit happened on the Conservatives as well. But those 14 years have been filled with challenges and controversies, making the Tories, as they're commonly known, easy targets for critics on the left and the right. Labour, which leans to the left, faces its own challenges in shaking off a reputation for irresponsible spending and proving that it has a plan to govern. Even though they haven't literally been in government for 14 years, but they can't do it. Where's your proof? 14 years ago, okay. Both parties are being ripped apart by conflict in the Middle East, with the Tories facing charges of Islamophobia, and the Labour struggling to distance itself from anti-Semitism that festered under former leader Jeremy Corbyn. Here's a look at the upcoming election and the biggest issues at stake. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak set July 4th as a date for the election, months ahead of when it was expected. He had until December to call an election that could have happened as late as January 28, 2025. The time of the election is determined by the Prime Minister's calculation of the date most advantageous to the ruling Conservatives. It has been expected that in autumn, when a number of economic factors were expected to have improved further chances, the Institute for Government, a London-based think tank, has said. But favorable economic news on the 22nd, with inflation down to 2.3%, changed that narrative. People throughout the United Kingdom will choose all 650 members of the House of Commons, so for Americans out there, that's their House of Representatives, basically, to term up for 5 years. The party that commands a majority in the Commons, either alone or in a coalition, will form the next government, and its leader will be Prime Minister. So that's what's important here. You don't vote for your actual Prime Minister. What you do is you vote for the people who will choose your Prime Minister, and it still might be somebody you don't like, and you can't do much about that, really. Except for yell at them and say, "Boo! This one sucks!" And then the government will be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Susan, you're not Prime Minister anymore. They don't like you." That means the results will determine the political direction of the government, which has been led by the center-right Conservatives for the past 14 years. The center-left Labour Party is widely seen as the strongest position, and they've famously been the opposition party for a long time, along with, I think, the Social Democrats. The Social Democrats is a little smaller of a governmental party in the UK, but they still have enough power to push people around, so to say. Sunak, a former Treasury chief who has been Prime Minister since... Sorry?
This issue Social Democrats have in this country is the best way for them to organize is through labor unions.
Yeah. And
so Labor ends up being the strongest left party.
Exactly. Sunak, a former Treasury chief who has been Prime Minister since October 2022, is expected to lead his party into the election. His primary opponent will be Keir Starmer, a former Director of Public Prosecutions in England and leader of the Labour Party since April 2020. But other parties, some of which have strong regional support, could be crucial to forming a coalition government if no one wins an overall majority. The Scottish National Party, which campaigns for Scottish independence, the Liberal Democrats, did I say Social Democrats? I meant the Liberal Democrats, and the Democratic Unionist Party, which seek to maintain ties between Britain and Northern Ireland, are currently the three largest parties in Parliament after the Conservatives and the Labour. Many observers suggest the new Reform Party, formed by Tory rebels, may siphon votes from the Conservatives. Let's hope for that, I guess. I'm anti-Tory as the most of them are, and it's not even my government. It's not even my country, and I've never liked them.
What did they do?
They
tried Tony Blair for like 8 years or something.
Yeah. Well, I did my bachelor's thesis on why Scotland wants to leave the UK, and while they'll never want to be part of it, and there was a lot of deliberation on the Tory government and how they're not so nice to Scotland. So, they're not nice to anybody, really, except for the rich people that give them money. The economy, Britain has struggled with high inflation and slow economic growth, which have combined to make most people feel poorer. The Conservatives succeeded in meeting their goal of having inflation, with at peak at 11.1% October 22, but the economy slipped into a technical recession in the last 6 months of 2023, raising the questions about the government's economic policies. Immigration. Of course, my favorite topic. Thousands of asylum seekers and economic migrants have crossed the English Channel in flimsy inflatable boats in recent years, raising concerns that the government has lost control of Britain's border. Well, you can't control a waterway. Sorry. The Conservatives' signature policy for stopping the boats is a plan to deport some of those migrants to Rwanda. Critics say the plan violates international law, is inhumane, and will do nothing to stop people fleeing war, unrest, and famine. Yeah, they'll just take another boat from Rwanda, probably, and come back. Healthcare. Britain's National Health Service, which provides free healthcare to everyone, is plagued with long waiting lists for everything from dental care to cancer treatment. Newspapers are filled with stories about seriously ill patients forced to wait hours for ambulance, then longer still for a hospital bed. But as anybody who's anti-Tory knows, their whole plan has been all this time to make the NHS into a private sector, not a national public service. Hence why they keep on making it worse and worse until somebody who's rich enough can buy the whole thing and then make you pay billions, like in the United States, which is mostly privatized, or if not totally privatized. The environment. Sunak has backtracked on Sears' environmental commitments, pushing back the deadline for ending the sale of gasoline and diesel-powered passenger vehicles and authorizing new oil drilling in the North Sea. Critics say these are the wrong policies at a time the world is trying to combat climate change. But you know how it is. If you can make more money, why wouldn't you? That's the Tory policy. Now, enough Tory hating, but that is your big info dump here on what has been happening in the UK politics, why they need, if you're living in the UK, you need to vote for somebody else, and just to see what will happen at this point, because it's been 14 years of we know what's going to happen. So I guess just try to see what else could happen, you know? I don't know who's still voting for the Conservatives right now, but I guess it's people who are healthy, hate immigrants, and want the planet to burn. Your story.
In their last 2 p.m. The last 2 PMs were Boris Johnson.
Actually,
who seemed to be insane, and Liz Truss, who she did not last a head of lettuce as a prime minister. So they've been kind of a joke ever since Brexit. Kind of a rudderless ship, if you ask me, from an outside point of view. The Conservatives just going, let's do populist bullshit that doesn't make any sense. What's policy? You know?
Well, I mean, it's it's Cameron who started
rudderless
Brexit,
ship.
And it happened because he put up a referendum, and enough right-wingers ran enough campaigns to trick people into thinking that Brexit was good for them, that people voted. What was it again?
Right.
It was like a 46 to 54 or something. It was really not a huge margin. It was probably even less, probably like 48%.
No, again, when you dangerously shove wedge issues in the middle of the voters to divide them, you're going to get close elections. They do this on purpose to stay in power. If there was landslides, they'd expect you to actually do something. Shit. Who wants to do something? I'm in government. I'm not here to do something. I'm here to frickin' steal your money. Well, anyway, I guess we're on to my story, or no?
Yeah.
Okay, from British political intrigue in the 21st century to a guy who wrote a lot about British political intrigue, Shakespeare. But most of his plays are about kings and British political intrigue, or Danish political intrigue as Hamlet. But did you know that William Shakespeare invented over 1,700 words that we still use? Common words that you use every day that you didn't realize weren't words until William Shakespeare started writing plays. And our number one, well, we got a little chart. We all got to do the dry erase board. 13 words. You use that Shakespeare invented. Number one is bandit. Bandit, didn't know us. There was a bandito, an Italian word or a Spanish word, but he shortened it to bandit for Henry VI. That's a word he invented. Critic. The word critic was invented for Love's Labour's Lost. He invented that word. The word critic. Bet you didn't know that.
No,
anyway,
I didn't.
This is going to get interesting, I promise.
I kind of wish you had, like, the lines from the plays where they say these things.
Yeah, that was too much work. That would broaden this like a half-hour show segment if I did that, right? Let me do a line. Then we're doing 2 minutes on each one, right? Dauntless. Dauntless. That's without daunt. Dauntless, of course, means like a knight. He goes in, he dauntlessly charges ahead without regard for his own safety, right? Yeah. Dwindle. I love the word dwindle. Yeah, who uses dwindle? I use it once in a while. Wow. My funds are dwindling. Remember, he invented 1,700 words, and these are just 13 of them. That was from Henry IV, not Henry VI. Henry VI, he invented so far 2 of my 4 words, dauntless and bandit. In King Lear invented the word elbow as a verb, as you elbow someone.
Oh, wow, that's so...
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And the Merchant of Venice, he invented the term green-eyed. Talk about jealousy. So, green with envy, green jealousy, green-eyed. And as you like it, he invented the word lackluster.
Which means,
of course, a cool word. Lackluster means like a crappy effort. Like, I put in a lackluster effort today because I didn't really give a crap. That's usually what happens. Are you lonely? Well, you're lonely because William Shakespeare invented the word lonely.
Oh, man.
That's right.
No.
Didn't have a word for that until William Shakespeare came along with Carolone.
Yeah.
That's right. This is one I have not read. Coriolanus. Have you read that? Have you even heard of it?
No,
I'm not familiar with that one, but he invented the word lonely in that play.
Right
yeah, in Midsummer's Night Dream, Shakespeare invented the word swagger.
Oh.
Yeah, if you know what swagger means, it's kind of a proud walk, you know. Hello,
I'm here. I thought it was
I'm a pirate,
hip-hop.
and I'm going to kick your ass. Anyway, huh?
Swagger, I thought it was a hip-hop word. It became a hip-hop word, I guess.
Oh yeah, these are all hip-hop words. Shakespeare was the hip-hop of his time. Unreal. Everybody says unreal. Wow, that's unreal. That's from Macbeth. The word unreal was never used before Macbeth. Unreal. As in, I know Shakespeare did a lot of this now. He took words that were existing already, and he just put the word un before them. And that's what he invented that, actually. He invented that process.
He's a freaking
because he also
genius.
invented undress from the word. Exactly. He also invented the word undress from Taming in the Shrew. You ever get undressed? Blame Shakespeare. Uncomfortable from Romeo and Juliet. The word uncomfortable was never heard before until Romeo and Juliet made you uncomfortable because you're watching a play about two 13-year-olds.
And they kill each other over.
And number 13 from the Comedy of Errors, Shakespeare created the word gossip. The word gossip never existed as a word until Shakespeare invented it for you flapping your gums about shit that's none of your business. So there's your 13 words from Shakespeare, and there's 1,700 more basically that he invented that you use every day. I can give you more examples if you want. If you want, somebody's telling you. Oh, by the way, this is from the word. This is brought to you for the people from Grammarly. Grammarly. It's not our sponsor, but we can get them as a sponsor. Hey, Grammarly, we're out there.
You should have emailed them saying, we're going to do a segment on 13 words by Shakespeare. Can you sponsor?
That's right. Oh, by the way, I got a perfect motto for them. Grammarly, it'll a pinch. Anyway, because that's what I use in a pinch.
Interrupted by
other words like alligator. Shakespeare invented the word alligator, invented the word bedroom, invented downstairs, eyeball, fashionable. He invented the word hurry. He invented inaudible, jaded, kissing. I'm just saying. He invented our frickin' language.
Yep.
Back to you.
Modern English.
Maybe next week we'll talk about all the things Bob Dylan said that we use every day. But, yeah. You don't even know how much Shakespeare's influenced your life.
No. Unless you're a historian of English language, then you probably do know.
Oh yeah, if you're a theater major, you're like, Shakespeare invented that, and your friends hate you. Your friends are like, shut the fuck up. We don't care anymore.
I took AP English in high school, so I definitely learned a lot about Shakespeare in that. English teachers love talking about Shakespeare and how great he is.
I've read 5 of them now. I've read 5 Shakespeare plays that I've had to read. 5 or 6, maybe more. For school.
Yeah. Definitely don't need a dictionary.
All right, back to you.
Okay. Well, this has nothing to do with anything we've been talking about. This has to do with sports. And it's an interview with Matthew Barney, which I don't know who this is, so I guess hopefully they'll tell me. This is an interview by Arwa Mahadawa on The Guardian. The superstar of the avant-garde has revisited a notorious football tackle that left one player paralyzed. He talks about violence, aging, and how the U.S. empire is in the decline. What is the U.S. empire? I don't know, but I'm happy to find out from this interview. There aren't many people in the world who could produce a literal river of excrement and be hailed as a genius. But Matthew Barney, the 57-year-old U.S. artist whose maximalist work often features sex, violence, testicles, and shit, is one of them. The New York Times back in 1999 called the sculptor, filmmaker, and performer the most important artist of his generation. The Guardian's Jonathan Jones has described the Cremaster Cycle, Barney's most famous work, as one of the most brilliant achievements in the history of avant-garde cinema. Kanye West more recently called Barney his Jesus. When Ardwa arrived at Barney's New York studio on the gray spring day, the first thing she saw isn't the Son of God, but a snake. Or rather, a snake's skin. The creature itself was hiding in its tank. Its name is Hardin, Barney tells. After Harry Houdini's brother. It's not a pet. The snake made an appearance in Barney's 2014 film of River of Fundament, a 6-hour opera loosely based on Norman Mailer's rewrite of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Features Mailer's spirits in various incarnations crossing the river of sewage. Hardin, Barney jokes, is a retired actor. Barney, who is dressed in a black hoodie and a baseball cap, is not your solitary artist, toiling away silently. His pieces are always productions involving vast casts, including big names such as Maggie Gyllenhaal, Salman Rushdie, and Paul Giamatti. There are more than 100 people listed in the credits for his latest work, Secondary, a mesmerizing 5-channel video installation that reenacts a famous accident in U.S. football. Today, almost 24 people are busy at work in the Long Island City studio. The place is humming as they finalize the sculptures accompanying Secondary. They pass what looks like sandbags, Olympic weights, and barbells, symbols of strength, all fashioned out of fragile terracotta. Embracing ceramic is new to me, Barney explains, as they linger over a weightlifting rack dotted with welds. But embracing a material that has a tendency to fail is not. I've made large works from petroleum jelly, for example, that couldn't hold themselves up. It's a quality I've been interested in for a long time. I think there's a way that ceramic connects to a really old tradition of expressing stress and failure that really is specific to material. After the studio tour, rapport with Barney gradually developed into his own stretch fractures. The softly spoken artist in his element discusses craftsmanship, but when he sits upstairs, he chooses a seat quite a distance from Arwa. He nudges the conversation towards the broader cultural themes of his work. He becomes uncomfortable. Barney doesn't seem to like being under a spotlight, despite choosing to perform in his films, often in the nude, and despite an early career as a model. After pre-med at Yale, he originally wanted to be a plastic surgeon. He briefly supported his art by doing catalog work for the likes of J. Crew, posing in preppy shirts and tennis gear. I learned a lot about image making, Barney said of those days. And I also learned about how flexible my own identity could be within the image. In a certain way, it was a training ground for some of the moving image work I did. I also think it's something I couldn't have done any longer than I did. Started to feel like it was using up something in me, representing a value system that I didn't necessarily believe in. What was it exactly? You didn't believe in tennis, chinos, the all-American masculinity of J. Crew? Barney shrugs. Whatever it is. I think it's objectification. Just the more you kind of sell yourself as an image, the more you become an image. You're no longer a person, but that image that you have sold. But that's my own ideas on it, not Barney's. On the surface, Barney seems to fit neatly within the prevailing value system. Born in an American heartland, he's a former high school quarterback who graduated from Ivy League and found almost immediate success in New York art world. God, freaking, they get the easiest handout, don't they? Yet his art often deals with freaks and filth. Does he think of himself as an insider or an outsider? One of the things that is unusual about my art that is very in the world in terms of making it, Barney answers in his characteristically roundabout manner. The way the communities are brought together in the making of the work. They're often coming from a place that doesn't have any connection to the cultural world. I'm thinking of working in environments like the Salt Flats in Utah and industrial locations of Detroit. There are also specialists who've come into the work who don't really have art backgrounds at all. I'm interested in the risk of taking my work out into spaces that aren't necessarily safe. Secondary, which was a shot of Barney's former studio a few blocks away, takes place on the decidedly unsafe space of an imaginary football field. The 60-minute film reenacts the moment in 1978 when Jack Tatum of the Oakland Raiders barreled into Darryl Stingley of the New York England Patriots with so much force that Stingley was left paralyzed. Do you remember this? You were alive for this.
Yeah, Jack Tatum.
Yeah.
Darryl Stingley, New England Patriots, exhibition game. It wasn't even a real game.
It wasn't even a real. Oh, that's
exhibition
even
game.
Worse. It wasn't even an important game.
Yeah.
The violent collision was played
Right, get injured in a game that doesn't count.
Yeah, sad. The violent collision was played repeatedly on TV, leaving a lasting impression on 11-year-old Barney, who had just started playing football seriously. Far from putting him off, the violence drew him in. Tatum and Stingley were young men in 1978. In secondary, Barney, who plays the role of Raiders quarterback Ken Stabler, cast men in their 50s and 60s. The fragility of the ceramic sculpture... Huh? Sorry?
I said Stabler, you said Stabler. No,
Stabler,
no big
Stabler?
deal.
I don't know. Stapler. That's how I was pronouncing it, like stapler. The fragility of the ceramic sculptures accompanying the video installation, he notes, intertwined with the way age and memory function in the film. It's an event I have very particular memory of, Barney explains, and I think there's a collective memory of that event, at least within a certain group of people. Given the mythology aspect of some of it, it was an easy thing then to translate to performers who had older bodies and could work with memory as an aspect of the piece. The mythology within the secondary stretches back to America's creation stories. I've been thinking about the way frontier paintings operated, Barney explains. These grand paintings of western United States were used as a tool to get people to move west. You have these caricatures of cowboys and Indians, where the subject comes closer and closer. And then at a certain point, it becomes frontal. It's coming right at you. And those American West paintings, those more frontal Remington paintings of charging horses, galvanize a kind of American myth that has carried forward into the violence of the game like football. The violence is inherently linked to masculinity, a constant theme in Barney's work. The sports field, the athleticism, the elaborate rituals of football. Secondary seems to boil traditional notions of American masculinity down to their sweaty essence. And yet the older Barney seem to suggest that perhaps the model of masculinity has reached its expiry date. I agree, but I'm a woman who's one of the primary victims of masculinity.
You're not going to play football.
So Barney doesn't seem convinced. Well, masculinity has certainly been a fertile subject for me, he says. A piece like River of Fundament, for example, where the work taps into the specific cross-section of masculinity. The character of Norman Mailer being a rather pure version of that, has helped create many different counterpoints for me. To have an archetype that's really strong placed in work, but I think it's still easy to find masculine archetypes in today's culture. Yes, things have changed and there are many more archetypes as culture has become more complex, and so I feel like my palette has grown into the sense. He wouldn't say that in the crisis of masculinity. Well, he laughs. There's a crisis about everything. Or Barney does not like talking about politics, but he sure does cover a lot of it if you look at his art, honestly. But he just doesn't want to say it outright. He says it more in a softer way. But it is a matter of public record that he is no fan of the former president. After Donald Trump's inauguration, Barney collaborated on an art installation in which the same countdown clock that features the secondary is placed above New York's East River and ticked off the minutes until Trump's presidency ended. Is Barney worried about what November will bring? I'm certainly concerned, he replies. I grew up in Idaho, which already had extreme division in politics, so in that sense it isn't a new condition. I think that you can track it back to more isolated communities in the US, so I am both not surprised by it, but horrified by it. I don't want to see it get worse. Still, he seems somewhat resigned to the inevitability of decline. We are surrounded by storyboards from secondary, which named after the term for the last line of defense in American football, and Barney gestures over Arwa's shoulder. I mean, There's a reason why on the panel behind you there's an image of Roman Colosseum. The Roman Colosseum. Roman Colosseum. You know, the famous actor. Roman Colosseum. I think it remains to be seen what America's version of the fall from grace looks like, but I think we're within that. I've always attributed sports to the Roman Colosseum, which was famously used to distract the common populace from the qualms of Roman society and the collapse of the Roman Empire. While they were betting all their money on who's gonna win, everyone else was like, the town's burning down, guys. Well, America's mythology may be unraveling. Barney keeps his own abstruse personal mythology carefully guarded. Does he ever, Arwa asks, want to make his art more accessible? You can't easily view his films. You have to wait for them to be shown at a film festival or know someone who might have dropped $100,000 for a limited DVD. All right, get my pirate hat on. I'm sure somebody has to have posted it somewhere. Would he ever make his work available on streaming platforms? He bristles. I kind of feel like my work has been made for far more accessible than a lot of other artists working in moving image, he says. As for streaming, he tried during the pandemic and the experiment ended there. I don't find it particularly satisfying to imagine somebody watching on a laptop. As Arwa left the studio, she stopped and tried to find the elusive Hardeen, but he's still hiding. All I can see is his discarded skin. So, that is an interview that was given on I guess it was given recently. I don't know when this interview happened. But he's having a secondary is being played on July 26th in the Gladstone Gallery in New York, at Sadie's Cole in London on the 24th of May to July 27th, Regent Projects Los Angeles from June 1st to 17th of August, Gallery Max Heltzler in Paris, June 7th to 25th of July, and the Foundation Cartier, Paris, 8th June to 8th September. So if you really want to see this artistic expression of one of the most scary incidents in American football, if not the most, then I guess check that out in those locations. This has been me with my very long culture segment onto this day in history.
So he was really affected by that one particular play, huh? I guess. I mean, what's interesting about Darryl Stingley is his grandson is a NFL football player. You know, he was the third pick in the draft a couple years ago. Derek Stingley. So it didn't discourage his grandson from playing football. Interesting. Sidebar. Okay, so what day is it today? This day in history, May 23rd. Oh, by the way, I sent you a mic drop. Did you get it?
Yes, I've already downloaded it.
Oh? Okay. Making sure. This day in 1430, Joan of Arc was captured by Burgundians near Compiègne, France. I hope I said that right. 1618, the defenestration of Prague occurred in response to religious persecution, helping set the stage for the 30 Years' War.
Yay!
In 1706, 30 Years' War. I wonder if they called it the 30 Years' War in year 29.
Yeah.
Were they calling it the 29 Years' War? The current war we haven't named yet?
I don't even think it was 30 years, by the way. I
always ask that question. Well, Joan of Arc was in the 100 Years' War, and I don't know when the hell they named that. That probably wasn't year 99. 1706, Allied Anglo-Dutch forces led by Duke of Marlborough recorded the major victory over the French at the Battle of Ramillies, a turning point in the War of Spanish Succession. In 1707, Sweden settler Carlos Linnaeus, first to frame principles for defining genera and species of organisms to create a uniform system for naming them, was born in Rasholt. A lot of words there. 1950, they declared war in Austria-Hungary entering World War I on the side of the Allies. In 1934, Bonnie and Clyde, notorious American outlaws. What's that?
Well, you said they joined the Allies, so somebody picked the right side.
Oh yeah, Italy was on the Allies side in the World War I. They're on the what they call the Axis side in the World War II. Couldn't make up their mind. Well, it was before Mussolini. So, on this day also, Bonnie and Clyde, as was into notorious American outlaws, were killed in a police shootout near Gibbsland, Louisiana. Back in the who needs a trial? Just shoot them. 1980, it was an ambush, complete ambush. Just fuck it.
Yeah.
They're dealing with these two. Basically an execution. 1980, the horror classic The Shining, Stanley Kubrick's film adaptation of Stephen King's 1977 novel was released in theaters. It starred Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall. Year 2000, on this day, American rapper Eminem released the Marshall Mathers LP, which became the fastest selling album in the history of rap.
Really?
Oh, Marshall Mathers.
I didn't even know that.
My name is 2015 American mathematician John Nash died at the age of 86. He won the 1994 Nobel Prize for Economics for his landmark work on game theory, who struggled with paranoid schizophrenia. We should play that song Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Make a joke and I will cry and you will laugh and I will sigh, or something like that. And a featured event was in 1951, Tibet annexed by China. China formally annexed Tibet as an autonomous region on this day in 1951, giving rise to the Tibetan independence movement led by the Dalai Lama, winner of the 1989 Nobel Prize, that continued into the early 21st century. Tibet just says, no, we're not part of China just because you say we are. Google it, Google, glunga, glunga. Sorry, that's from Caddyshack. Anyway, I apologize to the Dalai Lama. He actually is a good tipper. Captain Kidd died in this day, May 23rd in 1701. That's our feature biography. Captain Kidd died in London, born in Greenock, Scotland in 1645. And he was not a kid. It was just the last name, I guess. George Osborne, British politician, was born on this day in 1971. Douglas Fairbanks, American actor, born in 1883. John Payne, American actor, born in 1912. Rosemary Clooney, American actress and musician, and aunt to George Clooney's aunt, Rosemary, born in 1928. Joan Collins, born in 1933, English actress, and we already covered George Osborne. And what day is it? It's a very limited day today. It's only two things. It's National Lucky Penny Day and National Taffy Day. That's it.
Wow.
But I also discovered that we can create our own day. You can register a national day or week and just go fill out an application and maybe get on next year's calendar. And I have an idea for today's May 23rd day. I think it needs to be Liverwurst Day.
Liverwurst Day.
That's right. And I'll give reasons. Well, there's a song, which you're probably going to hear. That was my mic drop. Was a song called, there's a guy who's, before Weird Al, there was a guy named Alan Sherman who spoofed popular songs and made comedy out of them, right? So he took Down by the Riverside and he turned it into Don't Buy the Liverwurst.
Well, that's going to be our mic drop
Liverwurst, of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's a great song because the liverwurst went bad on May 23rd. So we're going to try to get national. I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to actually fill out the application, send it in for National Liverwurst Day. What do you think about that?
All right, go for it.
I think it's a great idea. There's worse ideas there on these.
And then they're going to be like, actually, National Liverwurst Day is November 20th. Something like that.
Well,
no, somebody claimed it.
Yeah, some of these are just totally arbitrary, but there's only 2 of them today, so this is where you strike, where there's so few of them. They need another
we
one,
need
right?
more.
So, May 23rd. Right, that's right. So, that's it. The news, all the news that we can stand today. May 23rd, 2024 on Before Taffy, or Before Your Lucky Penny, or Before Liverwurst, which we're going to try to force through our Liverwurst Day. And appreciate Alan Sherman, who died young at the age of 49 after all them great parodies. Okay. Anyway.
Well, this has been Allison here from the Netherlands. Right. I hope you are going, if you're not already having a good Thursday, you have a good Thursday. I will be streaming my usual yoga after the show because we did it earlier before coffee because Rog is a busy guy again, I guess.
And don't buy the liverwurst.
And don't buy the liverwurst. We will see you tomorrow for our Friday news dump. So don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you can get notified when we go live. And if you're watching on Twitch, of course, follow for the same reason. Have a good one out there. Stay safe. Don't vote for the Tories if you live in the UK. And that's me. Goodbye. Here's your mic drop moment. That's what I meant to say. Just like, bye.
When you go to the delicatessen store, don't buy the liverwurst. Don't buy the liverwurst. Don't buy the liverwurst. I repeat what I just said before. Don't buy the liverwurst. Don't buy the liverwurst. Oh, buy the corned beef if you must. The pickled herring you can trust. And the lox puts you in orbit, A-OK. But that big hunk of liverwurst has been there since October 1st. And today is the 23rd of May. So when you go to the delicatessen store, don't buy the liverwurst. Don't buy the liverwurst. Don't buy the liverwurst. It'll make your insides awful sore. Don't buy the liverwurst. Don't buy the liverwurst.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.